from Skylight calendars. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized through the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, reminders, all in one easy-to-see place. And right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendar by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal, skylightcal.com/NFL.
Let me tell you how nice a guy Joe Schobert is as we bring in Joe in a sec. So Joe was on my podcast last week, right? Mm-hmm. He lives in Colorado now, and he and his wife own a dance studio. And Joe was on the podcast. Now, when we were recording an interview to use during my live show the next day. And when you record an interview on whatever it is, that I can't remember the name of the platform I use, you got to save it. So we asked the guest to stay on a few seconds so we could save Zoom.
Is it Stream?
It wasn't Zoom.
It's Riverside.
It wasn't Stream. Riverside. Thank you.
I got Riverside too.
Right? So usually when we ask them to stay on, it takes 30 seconds max. Some like a minute, maybe 90 seconds. We brought on Joe. I don't know if it was because he was, because he's in Colorado. I don't know what was going on. Maybe it was our end. I have no idea. But it took, I want to say 45 minutes for the thing to save. And Joe stayed on the phone with us for 45 minutes.
Wow.
He drove to his house. Once he got to his house, it went faster. He was just taking us with him through the whole day. He couldn't have, most guests wouldn't have stayed on there for 3 minutes, let alone 40, right?
I'd have been hung up.
That's how nice a guy Joe Schobert is, and he's here with us now.
I got to go.
I mean, we really got to know Joe in the 45 minutes. He was unpacking his groceries. We got everything, Joe. Thanks again for that, man, and good to see you today.
Yeah, I mean, that was an eventful day for everybody involved, right?
It certainly was. Joe, we were talking about the Browns quarterback situation earlier. Could you ever recall a situation where 4 quarterbacks are legitimately, or at least we think legitimately, competing for a job? I mean, that sounds like something maybe in college that would happen.
Yeah, that was my first thought. It seems very similar to more when you get a graduating senior and you got 5 or 6 quarterbacks on the roster who all have potential. But yeah, in the NFL, I can't recall anything. Even real 2-horse quarterback races are kind of rare in the NFL. You always know who you think is going to be the quarterback. There's a quarterback battle. It's kind of just by proxy for the media and for the fans to talk about something. But yeah, a legitimate 4-horse race, a quarterback in the NFL is something new. I haven't seen it before, that's for sure.
Joe, this is the funny thing about it. When you watch these quarterback races or whatever, Joe Thomas was talking about it, and he said, when you watch these guys play, you'll know within a couple of seconds if a guy can play or not, especially if they're getting behind center. How is it being a defender and you guys are in your rooms and you're talking about what's going on and you like, man, did you ever have a feeling these guys can't play? These guys these guys are trash. Like this, we're in it for a long season, man. We're gonna have to stop a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. In the defensive room, I mean, the thing about the NFL from a quarterback's perspective is the windows are so small and they're not there very long. That's why I work with some high school guys around here a little bit on defense and talk about the quarterbacks and even go through college. Like, there's a lot of blown coverages. There's a lot of wide open receivers. There's a lot of underthrown balls that get caught. In the NFL, there's none of that. The defenses are all on the same page. So you don't, as a quarterback, there's not time to make a mistake and go to a second read and try to force a ball in there because it's not going to be there. And just like the mental processing of the position just seems like at the NFL level, you have to be able to process super fast. There's a lot of talented guys, a lot of talented arms that just can't play because they can't make the right decisions at the right time. And when you get on a field in live action, whether it's preseason or in the regular season, you can tell real quick if a guy's got it or not. And obviously, that's where I think a lot of quarterbacks have kind of faltered coming into the league the last, let's say, decade, because they just get thrust into that role right away, and pretty much nobody's able to take that. I mean, Peyton Manning, his rookie year, wasn't turning the world on fire. Like, it takes time to do that, and NFL stands for not for long, and owners and coaches everybody's worried about their own jobs and their team looking good, so they're trying to move on to the quick fix as fast as possible, and there's not a lot of time for these guys to develop. So, I mean, even if a guy comes out and is rough right away, it's not necessarily the nail in the coffin, but this day and age, it kind of feels like it is.
You know, Joe, I'm glad you brought that up because it made me think about JOK. You know, JOK was a linebacker that was very athletic. First year was okay. Second year really was down, and then he meets Jim Schwartz, comes in, and all of a sudden he's processing things really fast and he's making these plays. For you as a linebacker, how long did it take you to be able to be like, all right, I know what's coming. I've studied this. I know what the offense is trying to do, and it allowed you to play really fast?
Yeah, I'd say for me, my second season when we switched over from a 3-4 to a 4-3 and I started playing Mike, probably 5 to 6 games into the season, it took me to just get comfortable in knowing my job and my role every single play, where I didn't have to think about it in excess before the snap, and I could start looking at the offensive formations and looking at what they were trying to do and start predicting a little bit of stuff that they could try to attack us with and be able to make plays off of that. But it's so dependent on the scheme. Like, the different schemes have different strengths, and like for some guys you can be in a scheme which I like to call like a vision defense, where a lot of zone coverage, your eyes are on the quarterback. And for some players, especially athletic guys who play more naturally, like, that's a defense that they can just plug and play. You can get back, you can get your eyes on the quarterback, you can go allow your natural instincts to make a play. But then there's other defenses which are heavily predicated on matching receivers and communicating with other guys, ins and outs, and passing off stuff, which is a lot more mentally taxing, but works for some guys and it doesn't work for others. So it really depends, I think, on the defense and defensive scheme and finding the right fit. And like a guy like JOK, yeah, if you get him in a defense where you can just get him out in space and let his natural instincts take over, like, he's an athletic freak. He's going to go make plays on the ball, and you saw that.
You know, I'm glad you brought up changing from a 3-4 to a 4-3 because I was with you in 2017 when G-Dub became the DC. What did you think of him? Were your first impressions of him? Because I know what I thought. What did you think?
G-Dub, I mean, he's one of a kind. Like, I remember the first meeting, his thing when he comes into a meeting is just to be as loud as possible right away, to just wake everybody up and make everybody sit up straight backs in their seats.
Come get some.
I was not ready for that. Yeah, come get some, just at the top of his lungs. And he might be one of the best people in the world in enunciating what he wants to say at a high decibel volume, because he's very capable of that. But like, once you get past all the vulgar words and the attacks, whatever, people's character on the football field, you realize it's not personal with GW. He's just doing it to create stress, create an environment where he can see how people work through adverse situations. Because when you get in a game on the field, like, you're going to have a lot of adversity. You're going to face a lot worse things than Gregg yelling at you in a meeting room. And you can tell that it's not personal with Gregg. So once you get past that and you realize that that's what he's trying to do and you can go perform, like, he was a great coach to play for in that aspect. And I personally love the Tampa 2 scheme, so I always have a spot in my heart for it.
You know, Joe, I've been looking at this for, I would say about over the last 15 years. You know, when we grew up, you had guys like Urlacher and the Ray Lewises of the world and the Lance Briggs and
LeVar Arrington.
Yeah. Like, when we came up, like, you know, you talk about the late 90s, early 2000s through the 2010s, linebacker was the guy on the defense. The linebackers were the guys who made the tackles. They roamed. They were the impact players. It seems like over the last 15 years, linebackers have been devalued to a certain extent, where now people's philosophy is, hey, just give me a couple of guys off the street, put them in, and they should be able to tackle people. Why do you think the position of linebacker is almost a defensive version of running back, where people think like linebackers are not valued in winning football?
Yeah, I think that just goes along with the evolution of the game, and it's all cyclical. So I think linebackers and running backs are going to come back to being very valued in the future at some point. But I mean, the NFL is a game where it's always evolving. in the last 10, 15 years, it's evolved into a pass-heavy league. We got the quarterback generations of the Tom Brady's, Aaron Rodgers, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger's running the league for the last 15, 20 years. And it kind of went away from the big one-star running backs. And obviously, running back's a hard position to play. You get beat up. It's hard to rely on a guy for more than a couple of years to stay healthy and be the focal point of an offense. So I think just as the NFL has evolved into a more pass-first league, a lot more 11 personnel, a lot more nickel on the field. Obviously, nickel, there's one less linebacker on the field. 11 personnel, the running back's it's not a run-heavy formation. So it's just kind of the way the league's gone. It's trying to score more points, trying to throw the ball, trying to get all the big explosive plays through the air. And that's just really been what's gone. Linebackers, like, you don't see any Ray Lewis-sized linebackers in the league anymore. Everybody's got to run. Everybody's got to be able to cover. But at the same time, I think, like, with Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley last year, proven running backs can still be pretty valuable. I think everything's cyclical, so it'll start working its way back that direction. But right now, we're definitely in a low point.
Joe, in your career, you had 677 tackles. You were tied for the NFL league lead in tackles in 2017 with 144. 5 straight seasons of triple-digit tackles. Do you have a favorite hit from your NFL career? One hit that stands out when you look back and say, yeah, I laid the absolute crap out of this dude.
Well, I have one where I came and brought everything I had, and I stood a guy up, and it made a great picture for Instagram, but then a couple seconds later, he spun off and would have ran for a touchdown if the refs didn't blow for forward progress to be stopped, and that was Marshawn Lynch. That's a big boy. That's a big boy. I remember playing against, I don't know if I've ever seen somebody as wide as that guy is, with as quick of a feet as he has. But I remember coming up open field tackle, just bringing everything I had, hitting, rapping, running my feet, everything the coaches tell me, and we were just stalemated, just kind of did a little shake, a little spin, and I went flying. But thankfully the refs blew the whistle, and it was down. So it goes down as a tackle for no gain.
There you go. Was he the toughest running back to tackle?
Yeah, I would say so. That was when he was in Oakland, and that was a couple of weeks before I think he tore up his groin, and he was still Marshawn Lynch, still prime Marshawn Lynch. And just the combination of size, balance, and the quick feet he had, and we were playing on that baseball field. It was a long day out there.
Hey, man, I'm sorry I wasn't laughing at you, but, bro, like, I ain't heard some of these football terms in about 15 years. You said I brought everything I had.
Yeah.
Joe,
it didn't matter.
Joe, you was with the Browns for 1-31. You know, when you went through those seasons, at the beginning of those seasons, you know, did you think that that Browns team would be good? I only ask because as of right now, you see some of the moves that the Browns are making, and a lot of people are saying that they won't have a good season this year. And I was wondering if it's something that you kind of can recognize before the season even begins.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I came into 1-31, so that was like my first introduction to the NFL, and like we were working way harder than we worked in college. We were putting a lot of time on the field and like putting so much time into the meeting rooms and the schematics, and our preseason games were going fine, so it felt like we were going to be reasonably successful. Obviously, it didn't turn out like that on the field. I think now, if I was put in that kind of situation, I'd be able to realize it beforehand, but at the time I couldn't tell. And I think when you're in the locker room with your guys, like, the NFL is so much parity. Even though we went 1-31, we were in multiple fourth quarter games, we were in multiple overtime games, we had lots of times we should have and could have won games, and I think just we didn't pull it out at the end, and that kind of starts to weigh on you, and it makes it harder to be able to pull off the games at the end of a game. But every year, you never know, like, in professional sports, everybody's good. So if you can just kind of get the right combination together, if the right guys stay healthy, you get off to a couple of the games that maybe would have went against you in the past. You win one or two of them in the beginning of the season, can turn the whole trajectory of a season around. So I don't really put a whole lot of stock into preseason rankings or how the season's going to turn out, because 6 weeks of training camp, a lot can change. People stay healthy, people get hurt, teams trade, people get cut, picked up. there's a lot of things that can go on, and it just kind of depends on how the team gels going into that first week of the season, and if you can get off on a decent footing, that really sets the whole season up.
Joe, I'm not sure how closely you still follow the Browns, but in 2023, they had the NFL's number 1 ranked defense. In 2024, that defense took a big step back because, partially in my opinion, the offense wasn't capable of scoring enough points, and that definitely takes a toll on the defense. When you get into another season where you have higher hopes for an offense, how much can that reinvigorate an entire defense to play back up to the standard you know they're capable of when you're not having to go into each game saying, if we give up more than 6 points, we're probably going to lose?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The best defense in the NFL is a defense that's not on the field. So you got an offense scoring a ton of points, holding the ball, keeping the defense off the field. That's going to help all those defensive statistics. When you're on the field a lot as a defense, it's just natural you're going to fall in the rankings because you have to play more defense. There's going to be more opportunities for their team to gain yards, to be able to make explosive plays. But like I follow Cleveland pretty closely just because of like guys on the screen, Miles and Njoku. All those guys are still there. I got a lot of friends still on the team making plays. Some of the young linebackers and now the old heads in the room. So there's a lot of pieces. Like Cleveland's got all the pieces on defense to be a dominant defense, starting with Miles at the edge. So if you can keep them off the field, keep them a little bit fresher throughout the whole 4 quarters, they got all the pieces to be a dominant defense.
Joe, it's been a rough stretch for your Wisconsin Badgers the last few years. Obviously, a couple of 7-6 seasons, and the last year I think they went 5-7 with Luke Fickell.
Hey,
we know Luke Fickell's a good coach.
Hey.
Obviously, you think they're about to get back in the mix in the Big Ten this year, or is it going to still take more time?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, since COVID hit, I think Wisconsin we were on a high before that, and then that COVID season, kind of everything went off the rails all across the country in college sport, all sports. But since then, it seems like we've struggled to recover a little bit faster than some of the other programs, and I think like NIL and stuff, we're kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit compared to other, especially Big Ten programs. But Luke Fickell, obviously, is a proven coach. You see what he did at Cincinnati, and before that, I believe in letting college coaches go through at least one whole recruiting cycle before you determine what kind of coach they are. And I went to a game last year. I've been to a couple of practices, and I like what I've seen from the team. It's just got to put that into results on the field. And I believe in Coach Fickell to be able to turn it around. I mean, the air raid offense that they brought into Madison wasn't obviously suited for the personnel we had. And I think going into this year, we're kind of taking a step back from that, being a little more pro style. Will help because, when you're going to go play Wisconsin, it's kind of like Wisconsin's and Iowa's and Northwesterns. You're going to be in a physical game. You're going to be playing against a pro-style offense. Big offensive lineman, a good running back. You can get a couple receivers and a good quarterback. That's a recipe for success, and I think we're kind of turning back to that formula. So I hope it produces a little bit more wins on the fields on Saturdays.
Joe, we'll get you out of here on this one. Thanks again for making some time for us today. But you played with Miles. You mentioned that before. What was your first I can't believe Myles Garrett's a human being in the same species we are moment, because that dude does some physical things that no one else on the planet can do. Do you have a good Myles Garrett story that you can share with us today?
I mean, the biggest thing is just when you see him in the weight room doing, I remember we do like box jumps with like weights, dumbbells. I don't know, it was probably had 50-pound dumbbells in each hand, so 100 pounds box jumping like a 42 or 48-inch box jump. And it's just like, that's not supposed to happen. And then that goes before he takes his shirt off. He's a 275-pound guy, 6'4", not supposed to have 8-pack abs. But Myles is a freak. So he's one of those guys that you just look at. He's got all the talent in the world. And when you see him on the field making all the plays on Sundays, you just wonder like how we play the same sport. There's few guys in the league where you like look at them and you're like, how do I play the same sport as you? And we're on the same field, the same team at the same time, and I'm supposed to compete. Thankfully for me, Myles was on my team for most of it, so I didn't have to worry about that too much.
Thanks, Joe. We appreciate it, man. Good insight. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. You guys have a good one.
You too. Joe
That
Schobert.
was former Pro Bowl linebacker Joe Schobert, who's going to go hoop at the local YMCA in Colorado now. So Joe gets some buckets
That's right.
for the UCSS squad. We're going to move on, talk a little Cavs here.